Hey guys, it's Kevin. Welcome to the Kevin Dairaghi Show. We have a great conversation with David Dodge coming up. I'll tell you, he left so many nuggets, so much information. I can't wait to share this, guys, with you. But first, let's say a big thanks to all of our sponsors, Restore STL. That's my home buying company, but we're able to go out there and buy distressed houses and create home ownership on the backside. We have Lois Mann's Farmers Insurance. She does all of my insurance for all these houses. She's doing a fantastic job. Upright Construction, Greg. I mean, he does my roofs and gutters and siding and all this stuff. He does a great job. Well, all the storm damage, etc. This is a guy that gets out there and gets it done for you. Lickety split. We have CRS, so Complete Realty Solutions. That's Adam Dairaghi. So if you need property management, if you need some of this stuff, or at least some trusted agents, whatnot, Adam and his team have been great to work with. Essex Mortgage, so that's Peter and Tom. In fact, I'm refining several houses right now, but they have a hard money option. They have a DSCR option. They also have a traditional lending option there too. So if that is something you're looking for, Essex Mortgage. And then, dude, my buddy, Jason Hudson, and Red Maples Construction. These guys currently are working on multiple properties for me, doing a great job. It's great to watch them grow. They're actually now hiring. So if you're good with your hands, you can always reach out to Red Maples Construction and Jason there. So guys, right now, thank you so much. Let's get into our conversation with David Dodge. Hey everybody, it's Kevin Dairaghi. Today I got a special guest, actually somebody that I've known for a long time. So it's kind of nice to have you. David Dodge, how you doing?
Kevin, I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so we're St. Louis guys, right? I have to start with this because I think I know the answer. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Lindbergh High School, South County.
What? Did you know this? You, David O'Nanian, and myself are all Lindbergh people.
I did not know that.
So yeah, Lindbergh has a strong in the local real estate market. We got some big voices there, so that's pretty cool.
That's right.
And actually, have you seen the new school again?
I flew over it maybe 2-3 years ago and took some pictures of it, but I haven't actually walked foot on the campus in a long time.
You flew over it?
Yeah, my buddy's got a little plane, and we just go flying sometimes, so we flew over it, got some pictures.
Literally, you flew. I was like, oh, I wonder if he has a drone or something. Nope, you flew over it. That's awesome. So I have 3 boys. I don't know if you do that. 2 actually go to Lindbergh now.
Nice.
I mean, it's like it's like a college with like a little school attached to the front. Kind of a little different than when I went through it.
I think they've rebuilt the whole thing at this point.
It's pretty nuts. And all the middle schools, and they're doing a good job. So
yeah,
awesome.
For sure.
Well, that's actually not what we talk about here. So let's talk about this. You left high school, right? Mm-hmm. What did you do from there? Like, how did you get into real estate? Did you follow the normal patterns? Like, how did you choose real estate as your avenue?
Yeah, that's a good loaded question there, man. So I left high school and I went to Mizzou. My dad had passed away whenever I was a senior in high school.
Dang.
And I had lost my mom whenever I was 9 years old. So basically losing my dad in high school was, putting me in a spot where I didn't have any more parents at that point. So I left high school, went to college, went to Mizzou, spent 4 years at Mizzou. And when I was in Mizzou, I kind of shifted and pivoted, a few times, changed majors, ended up graduating with a degree in personal financial planning. And I had a couple of courses with some individuals that really focused heavy on real estate and Rich Dad Poor Dad. In fact, I had a whole course on the Rich Dad Poor Dad philosophy and book, which was pretty cool. And at that point in time, I just kind of knew that I didn't really want to have a corporate job and I wanted to own rental properties. So out of college, well, let me back up. While I was in college, I bought 3 houses in college.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they were rentals. I did it kind of the wrong way. I look at it like that in hindsight. At the time, I didn't really know of any other strategy, right? But when I say the wrong way, I bought them via an agent on the MLS, full retail, made an offer, and then figured out the financing, went and got a bank loan, put down 20%. I didn't have the 20%, so I borrowed that from, family and friends and acquaintances, got the loan, lived in them and house hacked, rented out the other rooms, and then, spent the next year, 2, 3 paying back the 20%. So it was kind of a slower method, right? I actually did that for 10 years.
No kidding.
Over the course of the next 10 years, I acquired 12 rental properties. But I bought 3 of them while I was in college. So I actually started buying houses when I was probably 20 or 21 years old. After college, had a couple jobs for short periods of time. I think I really only had 2 or 3 real jobs my whole life after college. Each one was maybe a year or 2 at most. And then I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and had a couple different businesses doing different things: marketing, lawn care, website design, e-commerce, so on and so forth. But all along that journey, before I went into real estate full time at about the age of 30, 29 or 30, I'm 40 now. So I've been doing it full time for about 10 years. But that first 10 years when I was in my 20s, I had different jobs and different entrepreneurial businesses, but all the time I was buying rental properties, and I was doing it the wrong way, right? The slow way, where I was having to put down 20%. And again, I didn't typically have 20%. So I was borrowing that money and then using banks and then paying back the borrowed money. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just, when I say the wrong way, because it's just a slow way, right? And in the most recent past 10 years, I've bought and sold 1,000 houses.
Hey!
And I have maybe 80 single family homes currently. I've bought and owned probably close to 300 rentals, even though I only own 80 of them today. So, the big turning point for me was at about the age of 30. I had 12 rentals. I thought I was doing pretty good. And I started kind of really diving in deep. I was, reading a bunch of different books. I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast as well as other people's podcasts. I started going to local RIA clubs where I believe I met you at. And I essentially started meeting investors. Brian Schroeder was one of them that definitely comes to mind, but he wasn't the only guy that I had met. But started meeting investors. Let me get the point out here. That owned, tons and tons of houses. I think at the time I met Brian, he owned 120 or 130 houses. And I'm looking at, what I had built and done over 10 years, acquiring 12 houses. And I'm looking at this guy who was probably about my age now back then that had 120. And I'm looking at the math here and I'm man, I'm going to be 100 years old before I can get to where he's at. So what am I doing wrong? What is he doing differently? What are these other investors doing that I am not? And, I've had a good epiphany, but also, opened my eyes up to just, getting creative and doing things differently. And essentially all I learned, I shouldn't say all, but the main thing I learned was, hey, quit buying properties retail on the market using bank loans and putting down 20%, right? Go directly to the seller, get deep discounts, learn how to wholesale, learn to also have different exit strategies like fix and flip, and learn how to buy creatively, learn how to do the BRRRR method, which I've written a book on and done, 250 to 300 of those at this point.
Define BRRRR method in case people don't know it.
Yeah, BRRRR method is just a strategy to acquire rental properties with little to none of your own money at scale. And that's kind of the way I like to describe it. So BRRRR it's an acronym. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. But you have to buy at a discount to make that whole strategy work and work well. So for the most part, to sum it up, I learned that I didn't need an agent and I didn't need to pay full retail to buy houses. And I learned that all of these businesses, right? Rental properties, landlording, wholesaling, fix and flipping, whatever. It all starts with marketing. And I hadn't been doing any of that in the previous 10 years. So I basically learned, hey, I need to start marketing. I need to build a little business out that, lets people know that I buy houses. And I need to find people that are in some sort of distressed situation or own a distressed property. So I can get in there and I can buy a property at, 50, 60, 70 cents on the dollar. And then when you do that and you learn how to do that and you get good at that, all the doors open on the backside for the exit strategies, dispositions, right? When you're buying a house full retail, you can't really turn around and sell that a week later for a profit. After all your costs and fees and, loans and just everything, you're going to typically, lose anywhere from 6 to 10% if you were to flip it, right? But when you buy a property at a deep discount, you have options. You can wholesale it, you can fix and flip it, you can buy it and add it to your portfolio of rentals, and ideally do it with little to none of your own money after you refinance it. So, there's definitely a little bit more to it. You need to learn how to buy right. You need to learn how to finance it on the front end. You need to learn how to finance it on the back end. You need to learn how to fix them up. You need to learn how to rent them and manage them. So there's definitely some complexities there, but nothing that somebody can't learn after just reading a few books, So that's essentially what I did. And here we are today. I own about 80 houses, and I flipped about 1,000 houses in my life so far. And I know that I don't want to be buying properties on the market at full retail anymore, because that just wasn't a good strategy.
I remember, I don't know where I saw you say it, but you said if you're a wholesaler, like if you're in real estate, you are a marketer.
You're in the marketing business. Yeah, period.
That's what it is. And it's
That's what it is.
Whether you want to say you are or you're not, guess what? And really almost any business. Like if you're actually running a business, you're marketing. Yeah,
I would argue that every single business is in the marketing business before they're in any other business. Of course there could be a few exceptions there, but I've worked with several hundred other investors as students of mine. I love helping and mentoring people and coaching people. And the biggest problem I see with most people is that they, they're in analysis paralysis. They're just wanting to learn everything possible that they can before they get started. And they're wondering why they're not getting any deals. And it's simple. It's because they're not doing any marketing. So this is a marketing business before it's any other business. And again, I believe most, if not all, businesses are really in the same boat. Just look at a couple quick examples here. Like look at your local dentist. If he's working in a basement somewhere with no web presence and no signage on the street, the only way he's going to get clients is word of mouth. Even that is a form of marketing. But most dental offices have storefronts. They're on a main street or in a plaza. They have a sign. They have a web presence. They're asking for reviews. That's how they get business. Same with your auto body shop. Same with your, local restaurant. Right? You have to market, what you do, what you sell, what you offer, if you want to get customers and get clients and do business. As a real estate investor, we need to, be shouting from the rooftops that we're looking to buy houses from people. We're looking to, help people out in distressed situations. If nobody knows what business we're in, regardless of what that business is, Kevin, it's going to be difficult for them to bring you opportunities. So, mostly what I do with my students, not all by any means, but mostly in the beginning, let's make that very, very upfront, right? Is teach them, hey, you need to get people on the phone. You need to market. So if you're not willing to make cold calls all day or go knock on doors, well, then you need to spend money to put your message out in front of other people via direct mail or bandit signs or advertisements of some sort, television, radio, billboard, park benches, whatever. I like direct mail. That's what I started doing. That's what I'm really doing the most of today. But you need to get people on the phone. You either need to call them or they need to call you. And that's it. Like that's what marketing is. From there, there's some obvious steps that you need to take to be able to do business with them. But none of that other stuff matters if your phone isn't ringing. And again, that's the main thing that I have, over the years helped people with and really drilled down is you have to get your phone to ring if you want to do business.
Have you ever done bandit signs?
I have. It's, probably been 5 or 6 years since I've done them. But bandit signs were, I've probably done 40, 50, 60 deals off of bandit signs in the first, 3 to 5 years of my business.
So bandit signs, if you don't know what they are, it's the we buy houses and a phone number that's tagged up or stuck in the ground. Really, I'm not seeing much out there anymore. Usually if a seminar comes through or something, you'll start seeing them.
Start seeing them for sure.
But I remember I did my first batch with brand new, right? I put a bunch out and I'm like, they're calling. And I was like, yeah, it's not like it's not instant. It's one of those like
not at all. But it's a phone call though,
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be instant, but most of the time it's not. And then that's where the skill comes in of you having to make a friend with them, try to set an appointment, make an offer, and then follow up. If we didn't follow up on any of our leads, we would probably do 5 to 10% of the deals that we do. And that's another piece that we educate our students on when we're mentoring and coaching them is, this is a marketing business, and part of the marketing is, making friends with people and continually reminding them that you're here to help them when they're ready. They might not always be ready the first time you talk to them, and that's okay. You have to constantly be reminding them. I don't really even ever use the word follow up when I'm on phone calls, following up, but that's what we're doing. Instead, I just say, hey, I'm just checking in with you. seeing if the situation's changed, seeing if there's anything I can do to help you. Some people will say, hey, I'm following up with you, but it just sounds salesy to me. So I just say, hey, I'm just checking in with you, Jane. Just seeing what's going on. Haven't heard from you in a while. I still would like to work with you and still like to buy that house in the event you want to sell. I'm definitely not trying to bother you, but I just want to remind you that I'm here to help you in the event that you're ready.
I love it. Now, Dave, are you an agent? Do you feel like you need to be an agent?
You don't need to be an agent. I am an agent. I've only been an agent for maybe 2.5 years at this point, and I've been in the business full time for 10, and really, for real for 20. But full time for 10. You don't need to be an agent. However, I would recommend anybody that's serious about this business become one, because it's not that hard to get. A couple $1,000, maybe 2-3 weeks of your time tops to get it, and then it'll just allow you to turn deals that you might not be able to do, into additional income via listings. It'll help you save money on the sell side of your own flips or your own rentals down the road when you do decide to sell them. Maybe you can find a deal or two here and there on the MLS. I don't love on-market deals, but, I've probably done 50 to 100 of them. So I know that's a wide spread, but I've done a lot of, on-market deals, but that still only makes up about 10% of all the deals I've ever done. Maybe even less, maybe 6 or 8%. So, I would recommend everybody get their license, again, if they're super serious, because it's just more education. It's another tool in your belt. It can't really hurt you. The only thing that you need to be aware of when you have a license and you're working with somebody is that you need to disclose that you're licensed, which is one sentence added to a purchase and sale contract. So simple. So, you get access to the MLS that way. You can run your own comps. You get a lot of other tools, so yeah, I would say if you're serious, why wait? Get it, and you never know. You could use that license to get deals and help sell deals and, all the different things that comes along with it.
And it's low-hanging fruit. If there's somebody, you give them options. I could either get them this way or this way. They're already there.
Exactly. I don't get a ton of listings from my marketing because I'm really pushing more so to be the buyer. But, there's a couple a year that we'll get that are worth our time that, we come in, we offer 150 on it and they owe 210. It just doesn't work for us. Mm-hmm. But I think I could probably get them that or more via a listing, and then we'll make a commission on it too. So, and then when you help that person out, you might make a little commission on it. But at the end of the day, you can get a testimonial from them. You can get a 5-star review, hopefully. And then you can also follow up or check in with them every few months and ask them if they know of anybody that could use your help and so just being active in the market and in the game is marketing in itself, right? So you can use that to compound your business later.
Yeah, when you bump into people at the closing table, you'll find you're like, hey, that's how you do it. You want to be around the people actually doing it, not just talking about it.
Absolutely. And, speaking of that, Kevin, that's another thing that I really harp on my students. I don't know if that's the right verbiage or not here, but I really try to, drill into them is, hey, if you want to be a full-time real estate investor or even a part-time one, that's fine too. But if you really want to be let's rephrase, a serious real estate investor, you need to do the activities that real estate investors do. And then, I kind of pause when I tell them that and just see, how they respond. But really the follow-up to that is what are real serious real estate investors do? Well, they do a lot of marketing. They talk to a lot of sellers. They get out in the field and they meet those sellers. They shake hands. They go look at houses and they ultimately make offers. So if you're not doing these activities, you're probably not taking this business very serious. So number one, you got to start marketing like today, right now. Do something. Send some mail, place some bandit signs, go knock on some doors. And then behind that, you need to start making friends. You need to start having conversations. You need to start walking properties. And ultimately, you need to start making offers. If you're not doing these activities, you're never going to have success in this business, period.
Love it. Underline. Perfect.
That's it.
Actually, that's really good, Dave. It's like you do this or something.
Yeah, it's like I've done a few deals, right?
So early on, was there, I actually like how you brought up Brian Schroeder. Brian Schroeder has been like, I don't know if I'd call him the Godfather, but he's been a major influence to a lot of good people in our industry here.
He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, on top of that. And he just has a great soul and an awesome heart. So it's like, it's he's a very giving and caring guy. And, I've never I've taken I've gone to lunch with him a few times and I've gone to tons of his RIA meetings and I've gotten, in the room with him a bunch of times, but I've never necessarily hired him for mentoring and coaching because, he's just super open. about how things are done and what he does, and not trying to discount him or what he does, but he's a rocket scientist. But when it comes to real estate, he's not necessarily doing rocket science here. This isn't rocket science. Learn how to market, learn how to buy deals at a discount, fix them up, go get a higher appraisal than what you're into it for, refinance it, move on. Like, anybody can do what he's doing, what I'm doing, so on and so forth. Love the guy, by all means, not trying to undermine that. But it was really eye-opening when I met him, and I'm like, I own 12, you own 120. You're only 10, 12 years older than me. What am I doing differently or wrong? And then I just copied and pasted, essentially. And a lot of people have done that too, So this business is really simple at the end of the day. That's really the takeaway I want to say here. It's really not a difficult business if you just do things the right way or in a certain way,
But if you don't know the ropes, you got to just learn the rules of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it probably took me a good year, maybe even year and a half to learn all these things and figure this stuff out. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't learn them, one time meeting him or other individuals like him by any means. You got to keep coming back. You got to be persistent, but once you see the big picture here, like, again, this isn't that difficult.
All right. So Dave, I have to ask, I like Schitt's Creek, right? So I watched it, I laughed, all that stuff, right? Watched it with the wife. And then I look and I found you, and you go and buy like a little motel down in the Boot Heel or something. And I'm like, is he doing that? So
Yeah.
tell me about this deal, because I haven't seen this one yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not one of my better deals.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pick that one, but I just thought it was awesome.
No, I mean, it's okay. I'm happy to talk about it. I still own it. I've owned it for
what is it? What did you?
Probably going on 3 years at this point. It's been a while. So it was a 67 unit motel, an hour south of St. Louis, where we both live here, in a little town called Bonne Terre. Small little town. It's about 10 minutes north of a town called Farmington, which is a bigger town than Bonne Terre, but also relatively small town. 67 unit motel. It is 2 stories, 2 buildings, on a pretty large lot. And at the time that we had bought it, there was, I think, 12, 14 people that were living in this hotel full time. In fact, I think there was 12 plus people that had been living there for 2+ years, and there was 4 or 5 plus people that had been living there for 6+ years. But then obviously they would rent out units, by the day, by the week, so on and so forth. The place was completely trashed. Sellers were motivated, so that was a good thing. We bought it for $1 million. We guesstimated that we would spend another $1 million fixing it up. We actually went over budget by $700,000-800,000. So we ended up spending
Well, you did like solar panels, and
we did, but we did everything to the building. We new roof, new windows, gutted every single unit. New kitchens, new baths, new flooring. New doors, new everything. We didn't really do 100% new electrical or new plumbing, but we definitely had to do a lot of that as well. Because it was 67 units and they were all basically on 1 meter, because, a hotel doesn't have any, or a motel, motel, they don't have any need to have, 50, 60 different meters. It doesn't really make sense for us to go in and individually meter all of it for water or electrical. So we decided, hey, let's offset this cost a little bit. We did throw solar panels on the roof of one of the buildings.
Did it work?
Well, it's working. It's on. Yeah, I mean, the payback on solar is 7 to 10 years minimum. It could be 12 even. So, we financed that into our loan, and it's definitely helping offset the monthly electric bills. However, it's increased the mortgage because we financed that in. I mean, it was like $240,000. So, that increases your mortgage for the next 25 years. But it's decreased the electric bill more so than the amount that's increased the mortgage, right? So, I mean, after, let's say 10 or 12 years, then it'll really start, having a positive ROI. In the meantime, it's just helping reduce costs overall. The problem with going in and trying to individually meter it is this building, or these buildings, they have, tons of different electrical panels. and all the wires from one panel don't go to one unit. They might go to 2 or 3 units. So like it would have just been such a nightmare trying to rewire the entire
That's a
building.
lot of wires.
Yeah, I mean, we got a quote for $400,000, and I was like, yeah, I'm not even thinking about it. I might even consider that, you know. So, but yeah, we did that. We've got it stabilized now. We converted it. I should have said this earlier. We converted it to 40 long-term apartments.
Okay.
So we went from 67 down to 40. It is, you know, occupied at about percent, you know, plus or minus a few percent here and there, because with that many units, people are constantly moving in and out. You know, occasionally we have to do an eviction, but we've relatively been pretty good about finding, you know, good tenants, and we've got it refinanced. But, you know, it was one of the hardest deals I've ever done because of the fact that we went over budget so far. And that was really a combination of us not knowing how to budget that or estimate that, but then also just spending more than, you know.
And you're not talking a little. That's
yeah. I mean, it was almost a $2 million rehab at the end of the day. You know, we purchased it for $1 million. We're in it for like maybe 2.6 at this point, you know, give or take. And I think it's probably worth like, you know, 3.25. So there's definitely some equity there, but it was 2 years of distractions. It was 2 years of selling assets to cover the overages and the offsets. It was 2 years of making little to no income in my business, because every time that we, you know, did a decent deal and made 50, 60, 70 grand, I would pay myself like 2,000 or 3,000 and dump the rest of it into this deal. You know, didn't go insolvent, didn't file bankruptcy. So I guess I'm really grateful for that. I've learned a ton, mostly what not to do and what to avoid. You know, I still own it to this day. I mean, it cash flows a couple grand a month, but it's definitely not making me rich. It's actively for sale, so if anybody wants to buy it, hit me up.
You just sold it.
Yeah, I'll sell it for 3.25. I mean, now it's a decent asset. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
You know, along the way, the 2 years of, you know, struggle and lessons and driving an hour back and forth 2, 3, 4 times a week for, you know, a solid year and a half, you know, I'm just kind of over it for the most part.
I do know
I don't necessarily regret buying it. You know, I don't really believe in regret. Like, you know, you can't change it, right? So why dwell on it? But I can tell you, I'm not looking to do anything like that anytime soon, ever, you know, or again, anytime soon. So, you know.
Yeah, that's going to be my question is, if you could, knowing what you know now, would you go back and buy that again?
No, not at all. I mean, the main thing that I've learned here, the main lesson is, you know, you can take calculated risks with real estate, right? That's why we like real estate, right? And there are certain types of real estate that you can do that have very, very low risk for the amount of reward that you get. And that particular deal was more of the opposite. The reward that I got was very, very low compared to the high risk that we took. So, you know, knowing this now, like I'm sticking to single families and small multi-families that I can get in and get out of quickly. I'm not buying anything more than 30 minutes away from my office or my home. I don't want to be doing these long commutes. You know, try to find contractors in these different markets can be challenging. Not having eyes on the property is not ideal. You know, it's just lots of lessons along the way. But, you know, single families are my bread and butter. That's what I'm going to stick to. I'm not against small multi-families, but, you know, until you have a really, really good balance sheet and income statement, even going into bigger multi-families, I feel it's just too much risk.
Dude, that's great advice right there. I actually thought it was just a fun little Schitt's Creek story. I did not know all this other stuff behind the scenes, so I'm sorry if I stumbled into that.
Oh, don't be, man. I mean, it is what it is, and I've been, you know, pretty public about it on socials, about the deal and buying it, and, you know, I haven't necessarily got on there and told everybody the downsides to it, but at this point, it's stabilized, it's cash flowing, so, you know, it turned out okay, but it was a struggle. It was a very, very hard, long struggle getting this across the finish line and not defaulting on any of my debts, which I didn't. Thank the Lord. But yeah, man, it was definitely a challenging time in my business and in my life.
So I might have just stumbled on this as we were talking, but earlier this year, I do monologues every so often. I did one on Eads Bridge, which is a bridge here in St. Louis. summing up what we talked about, it was manifest destiny, connecting East and West. All that happened here in St. Louis, right? And the people trying to design it, the criteria was crazy. So this is after the Civil War. It's over a mile long. It had to be tall enough where the steamships could go. Trains were going over, so there's a lot of live load, big current on the all this stuff, right? Common building material was stone, it was wood, and it was iron. And those materials could not do what was required of it. So what had to happen was forging, right? So Dreamforge finish is the big takeaway from each bridge, but forging is what made iron into steel, right? And to do it, you need that heat, you need the pressure, you throw in additives or good, healthy habits, and you need to pull away the impurities, the bad things. In your world, in your life, what would you say is your forging moment? A moment where it was one of those, like, do I want to keep going? Do I want to stop? Do I want to, what really was that crucible that made you into Dave F. and Dodge now?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Man, I don't know. I would say, I'm probably unemployable. I mean, I don't know if that's really the right answer or if it's even in line with, what you're asking. I love your question. It's complex stuff, right? So I'm unemployable is kind of my answer to that. I would rather work for myself, make my own schedule, have the ability to do what I want when I want, or I value that more than, going and having a different type of career. So when I learned about Rich Dad Poor Dad back in college and that you can, make income from rentals and build wealth and do it on your terms, I essentially was hooked, even though it took me 10 years to really start doing that as a full-time gig, even though I was doing it passively. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer for me. I would circle back to, I can't imagine spending my days building somebody else's career and dream or dream, building them well. I would much rather focus it on my own. And if I fail at it, then that's okay, but if I fail at building somebody else's and get fired, I don't know, I probably would feel like a failure. But if I fail at my own thing, it's just a lesson. It's not really a failure. So I don't know. That's just that's my vantage point on it, at least.
My corporate America was pretty low, but JOB stands for just above broke. And it is interesting that your monthly expenditure kind of goes up to whatever you're making.
It does, doesn't it? It's wild how that happens. Yeah.
Whether you want it or not, it's like, oh, I make X, great. Why is going out
the I can afford that now. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I have, I think we all have done that along the way. It's like you make more money and you want to get the lake house, and then you make even more money and then you want to get that country club membership. It's like as your income doubles, triples, quadruples, your expenses do too.
Yeah, you
so
start
lately
the
I've been
cheese and the
back
bacon and the avocado, right? You start adding all the fixings to your
That's
burger.
Exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, lately I've been trying to scale back on the expenses because, if you really want to have true freedom and get away from having to work, you need to be able to save and you need to have cash flow that isn't all going out the door, so yeah, I love that. I agree with that 100%.
Let's go back. So this forging moment, right? It sounds like this motel was one of those because you said things like, thank God I made it. You had to cash out some other stuff to be able to fund it. Yeah,
I sold 40 houses in a 23 unit building. So, I sold almost 70 units total, 65, give or take, to be able to get this done. And I wouldn't have done it any other way. I mean, I had it to sell, so I did it. But again, that's another thing that, in the event that I make a mistake on a single family house, I might have to sell one house, or I probably won't. I'll just typically have the reserves to be able to cover that mistake. When you start taking on bigger and bigger projects and bigger risks, you're most likely not going to just have the reserves to cover the mistake. I've only lost money on 4 deals in my whole life.
It's not bad.
And, I love talking about this, actually. This is definitely something I don't hide behind because it can be a really, really good lesson for anybody, new and experienced investors. But the funny part about the 4 deals that I've lost money on, they were all single family deals. And I didn't just make one mistake, I made 2 simultaneous mistakes. The same 2 simultaneous mistakes on all 4 of those deals. So what were those mistakes? Well, number one, I overestimated the ARV, the after repair value. I thought this house was going to be worth more fixed up than it ultimately ended up being, right? And here's the thing about that mistake. You can make that mistake if you don't make an additional mistake, which we're going to get to next, and still make money. I've done that probably 50 times. Where I'm like, oh, the ARV is going to be 200 and it ends up being 180, right? So it's not the end of the world if you make this mistake. However, if you pair this mistake with this next mistake I'm going to tell you about, it can be really, really bad. So the next mistake is underestimating the cost to get it to the ARV. So underestimating your repairs. And again, you can make that mistake, individually and still make money, right? Not a problem. But when you make these two mistakes together, you're going to get squeezed from both sides. You think you're going to get 200 for a house, you get 180. You think it's going to cost 30 to fix it up, it costs you 50. Well, you're losing 20,000 on each side, and you're going to get pinched. Now, again, you can make one of these mistakes, and I probably made one of those mistakes individually probably damn close to 200 times. I'm not bragging by saying that, but I've still made money making those mistakes individually. But when you make them both at the same time, you're going to be in the red zone. You're going to be in the danger area, right? So the only 4 deals that I've ever lost money on, I've made those mistakes simultaneously together. Luckily, they weren't crazy losses. I mean, anywhere from 5 to 20 grand on each one. But that's really what I was trying to prevent with that motel, and so on and so forth. Try to avoid making those mistakes simultaneously. The easiest way to do that, Kevin, is just be very, very, very liberal on your repair estimates. I mean, it's better to think you're going to spend 50 and spend 45. I mean, that's just icing on the cake, right? Like, why would you not have that mindset is the way I look at it at this point. And then the same thing with your ARVs. If you think you're going to get, 200, maybe going into your math on 180, 185, just in case. And if you do get 200 or 210, icing on the cake. Come on, this is great. But like being optimistic on either side of this isn't a good strategy. And I'm not suggesting anybody be pessimistic. Don't get me wrong here. I'm just suggesting be realistic. Like what are the middle of the line comps? Okay, let's go with that, or maybe just below that for what we think it'll sell for. And what could this cost if things go wrong? Well, let's maybe work on that number. And if you do that, you're gonna be, it's gonna allow you to make 1 or 2 of those mistakes, ideally 1 or less, and still make money on deals.
Yeah, we target motivated sellers, right? People who have to sell on a certain timeline. We should not and be a motivated buyer. That's when we get in trouble. That's when we make these mistakes. Oh yeah, that'll totally go up. The market's going up. We'll be great. Oh yeah, well, we should be able to do that in 2 weeks. Nope. That's when you get in trouble.
That's exactly right. So I'm hoping that I never lose money on a deal ever again after all the lessons and, that I've learned along the way. And, you never know, of course. But
I also like how you talk about it, selling off 70 plus units to pay it, like houses and properties become baseball cards, right? It's like, oh, here we go. All right.
Yeah, I'm not really attached to any properties other than the one I live in, which I probably shouldn't.
Which obvious reason.
Well, I probably shouldn't be, but I put so much energy and effort and money into maintaining it, keeping it nice, and it's probably not worth what I'm into it for, which isn't ideal. But
are you doing anything different because of the tariff talk or the uncertainty that's going in today's market? Are you adjusting any numbers?
Yeah, I am. I'm just being more conservative with everything. I mean, that's really in a nutshell what I'm doing. I'm not necessarily that worried about the economy or tariffs or stuff like that, but I have seen firsthand, and I'm sure you have too, and probably most people listening to this podcast as well, that since COVID, everything is more expensive, like materials, labor, taxes, insurance. The cost to turn a property pre-COVID, let's just talk about just a normal little single family home, right? Cost to turn a little normal single family home pre-COVID was $2,000. Now it's $6,000. And I can't charge a $6,000 deposit on a rental property that is only bringing in $1,500 a month. I can't legally do that. So one of the big things that I have done in my business over the last, let's say 15, is I am no longer leasing properties. I shouldn't say no longer. I am moving away from, that's a better way to word this. I'm just leasing properties as they turn over. Instead, I'm seller financing. And in the new ones that I am buying, I'm either wholesaling them, fixing, flipping them, or I am seller financing them. I am eliminating the maintenance and a lot of the property management expenses. I'm also eliminating the turnover costs because, hey, I'm seller financing this. This is your home. You fix it up. You maintain it. If the roof leaks, don't call me, call a plumber. or a roofer in that case. Toilet, call a plumber, right? So
I was like, yeah, sure, call them.
Plumber's not going to help you with your roof, folks.
Yeah, they'll be like, don't call us either.
I'm thinking too far ahead here. Yeah, but that's really the strategy that I am pivoting into. And this may sound kind of crazy, but in the next 2 or 3 years, I hope to have 150 to 200 properties in my business's name, but not a single rental. All just seller financing. I like to look at it as loan lording. I'm offering seller finance. I'm selling them on contracts for deeds or via trusts, but I am not a maintenance. I'm not dealing with the maintenance. I'm not paying a property manager. It's either you pay me or you don't. And if you don't, I send it to the attorney and they remove you, however that has to happen. And then I resell the property. So I love the strategy. I've had lots of fellow mastermind members, coaches and mentors over the years tell me to make the pivot. And I just was hard-headed. And about 15 months ago, we're looking at our income statement and our balance sheet. And we're like, man, how are we not making any money owning 70 plus houses? Like literally we went from making 20,000 plus a month pre-COVID to losing money owning 70 houses. How does that happen? Well, it happens because your turnover costs triple. Your insurance doubles, your taxes go up 50%, your materials go up 30 to 50%, your labor goes up 20 to 30%, everything goes up. All that stuff's going up. The amount of the rental increase year over year is also going up, but at 1/5 of the percent, right? As everything else is going up. The rental increase trend line is almost flat, whereas the expense increase trend line is at a 45-degree angle. So that gap is getting deeper and deeper and deeper every single year. So I love the Burr method, and hopefully if interest rates get back down to 3%, I'll start doing it again. But I'm essentially still doing it. I'm just doing it as a 2.0, Kevin. And I'm still buying at a discount. I'm still rehabbing sometimes, but I'm even getting away from that. On the fix and flip, sure. But instead of renting them, I'm just selling them. And then I'm still refinancing them and repeating that process, right? But I like the seller financing because of all the things I listed. There's a couple other really, really valuable things with seller financing. Number two, because number one was all the stuff we talked about, right? Number two is I can charge an interest rate. And that interest rate, you can't charge on a rental, right? So I can charge 9, 10, 11, even 12% in some cases, on their 30-year loan that I give them. Number three, I can mark that property up in some cases 100, if not 200%. I can buy a house for 30 grand and sell it for 90 and charge 10%, right? Number four, I can pay that property off in 5 to 7 years without it appreciating. And I can charge an income on it for 30. And then of course I mentioned, not having to do all the upfront costs of the rehab, not having to maintain it, and then not having to pay property management. I probably paid 200 grand a year in property management fee. So it's just trying to get away from all the expenses is really the main. I don't even know if you asked me, but I'm telling you anyway. That's the pivot I've made in my business lately, and that I'm even coaching my students on is, rentals are great. You can still own a rental. There's actually a better way to do it, in my opinion. And it took me 20 years to figure that out. So hopefully anybody listening is like, don't wait 20. Maybe I look into this today.
So since our three main tenets here, Dave, is the most important real estate is between your ears, your personal drives, your professional, and it's all about relationships. I didn't know this, so you got me extremely curious, and I don't mean to push too much if it's a sore subject, but you lost your parents early.
Yeah.
No idea here, but how did that affect your life, your business, and all this other stuff? Was that difficult? What happens? What did you do?
Absolutely. But, you got to pull yourself out of the ditch and you got to keep moving. And, in my 20s, I was pretty worthless. I was drinking and smoking and doing things that I shouldn't be doing all day. And, college was fun and awesome by all means, but it was pretty much 4 years of just destroying my body. I didn't have a whole lot of drive because I just kind of had lost faith in everything, and then in my early 30s, I got it together, so it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I don't necessarily look back at it like, oh, poor me. I think in a lot of ways it's made me a stronger, mentally and emotionally because of the fact that I didn't have anybody to guide me for those years. I mean, I still had aunts and uncles and cousins and sisters and, really, really, really good friends. So, it is what it is. It's my past. I don't necessarily look at it like it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way it was,
Yeah, I mean that's That's remarkable, because actually we'll do it this way. So a lot of people do have these negative moments, right? You have the motel, you have some of the personal.
That might have been harder on me than losing my parents, man. Not true. But man, oh man, it felt like it.
And it was over a period of time, which is very uncomfortable, right? When you're looking at doing things. But if somebody's going through something significant, because those are significant events that we just talked about. Like you said, oh, you just bounced back, or, you spent, 10, 12 years not being productive, I think is your words. Even though
I was worthless.
12 houses, right?
Worthless.
But if you're in a funk, for whatever reason, what is some advice you'd give that person?
Oh, man. Okay, so I love that you asked me this, man. And the answer is you need to look in the mirror. Take off your shirt, right? Look in the mirror. Are you happy with what you see? And the bottom line is like, get your shit together. Stop effing around. I don't know if we can say that on here, so I'll abbreviate it. Stop effing around, right? So, start lifting weights, start working out. Quit eating all the shit you're eating. Just get it together, and that might not resonate with somebody that's listening to this, but I can tell you this: I am happier, I am healthier, I am fit, I am productive now, just because I'm cognizant, I'm aware, right, of all these things in my life that weren't helping me, and I've done everything in my power to eliminate them or to continue to eliminate these things. So I'm a big believer that we can all become better people. Healthier, happier, all the things in life that can become more positive, not necessarily by starting doing new things, but by stopping doing things that are bringing us down. And ultimately, if you stop doing something, you typically are going to replace it with something else that is more productive. We've all heard the saying or the mindset of like spiraling, right? And most people, when they hear spiraling, they think it's a negative thing, and most of the time it is. So you can also spiral up and spiral positive, right? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question per se, but I just wrote a book. It's going to launch in 2 weeks. It's called Stop Effing Around, but it's spelled out. And it's 70 chapters of things that you can stop doing in your life to make yourself a better person, happier, healthier, so on and so forth. And it's short chapters, like 1 or 2 page chapters. It's going to be launching in like 2-3 weeks from now.
Yeah, I'll buy. We'll push it out.
Thanks, man. But the cool part about it is it's like, reflect on the things that you're like, chapter 1, stop eating shitty food, right? Reflect on the food you're eating, right? Now, what can you do to replace this shitty food with other food? Now, think about all the positive things that are going to come from just stopping doing something very simple and starting doing something else even more simple. And I have 70 chapters in this book, so I'm real excited about it. It's really just kind of been a passion project for me. But again, to sum it up, I'm a big believer that starting new habits is difficult. Like, let's be real. It's very difficult. But identifying the bad ones and stopping them, I just feel like is just such an easier approach. The great part about that is you're going to spiral up by doing that. And you're ultimately going to replace those bad habits with good ones. And it's like pouring gasoline on a fire whenever you can just start identifying and replacing.
Dave, you actually just said it in your words of the same idea of making iron into steel, right? Pull out the impurities, quit eating bad shit, quit doing do, and then building healthy habits, right? Put in 100%. The additives, right?
That's a great way to tie that back together, man. Absolutely.
It's like I do this or something, right? But
That's right.
It's one of those, like, just what can you do? Start with 10 push-ups, walk around the block, read a chapter of a book. It's not read a book a day. It's not know it, but it's just make that habit that this is what we do.
Yeah, it's really about changing your standards. Habits are created, and they're hard to create. But like, I just finished a book yesterday, and it was called The Science of Getting Rich. I believe that's what it was called. And one of the things in that book the main thing that resonated with me is you can stop doing bad habits, you can start doing good habits. But it can be difficult to do both of those, right? But if you change your standards, I am not the kind of person that goes home and drinks alcohol. I tell myself that. That is a standard. It's not a habit. It has nothing to do with habits. I am not the type of person that is going to go home and get blacked out drunk. So if I have that as a standard in my life, I'm not even going to think twice about opening up a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey when I get home from work. It is a standard. So one of the things I think people can do is they can actually sit down and reflect on their own personal standards. And if they don't have any, create some. And if you can live by your standards, you don't really even necessarily need good habits. right? Like I look at it like I am not the type of person that is going to be overweight. So I don't even need a habit to work out. My standard is I will not be overweight. So instead of sitting on the couch watching 10 hours of Netflix on Saturday, I'm going to go to the park and jog because my standard aligns with it. So, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. That really, really resonated with me. I already kind of followed that strategy or in that mindset, but now that like it's been placed in, I think the best way to verbalize this is it's been framed in that light. It's like, man, love that. I'm living by that.
You just like nailed my last couple of questions. I'm like, dang, I'm leaving that in. Like, I don't need to rephrase that. Well, David, you've had a great conversation here. It's like you've done this like 500 or 600 times.
You would think so. Thank you.
You might have been around. Now, here's this. If somebody wants more David Dodge before the book comes out or when the book comes out, where do you want people to go? How do people get in contact with you? What do you want people to know?
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm not super active on socials, but Instagram would probably be my most go-to social. You know, it's my full name, David Alan Dodge, Alan. My middle name is Alan. Otherwise, YouTube, David Dodge Show. If you're looking to learn how to start marketing, how to start making offers, how to start doing things that real estate investors do, and ultimately doing deals, real estate school is where I have essentially moved all my courses, all of my mentorship, all my coaching. There's a community over there too. That's school, SKOOL.com/real estate. And that's really it, man. Instagram, YouTube, and real estate school would be the best places to connect.
David, you gave so much wisdom, so much insight, helpful hints here. So thank you for sharing a lot of the personal side too, behind the scenes of what it is to actually be successful. It's not all rainbows and beachfront vacation homes. Some days suck.
Well, yeah, absolutely, man. I'm happy to get the opportunity to connect with you and talk with you, but also, you know, hopefully share some nuggets to people. And, you know, if anybody's going to take away anything from anything we said today, man, I would just really, really harp on this, like, or just drive this home. You know, look at your personal standards. And if you don't have any, create some. And, you know, that alone, I feel like can really, really, really do a lot for everybody. You know, put some standards together. You don't necessarily need to like write them down, but that could be helpful too. Just think about it. Like, I am not the type of person that is going to be overweight ever. I am not the type of person that's going to go home and drink alcohol ever, right? I am not the type of person that is, you know, going to not be able to pay my bills ever, right? And just by having these standards, like, the habits come naturally, you know? So put them out there.
Dude, great advice for anybody going through this. Especially, I like to look in the mirror. Dude, just look in the mirror.
And take off your shirt,
like,
too.
If you're not, it's on you.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get more real than that, you know? It's like, if you're not happy with it, that's okay. I'm still not 100% happy where I'm at. I'm at 165 pounds right now. I look pretty good, but, you know, I'm still not 100% happy. But that reflection is the truth. It ain't going to lie to you, you know? So it's like, you're not going to change what you don't know or what you aren't aware that needs to be changed, you know? So it's like, it's just a hard truth, but a good one.
Dave, I love it, man. Thanks so much for jumping on and sharing. Thanks for all the positive stuff that you're out there doing for people. Excited to see the book, so we'll crack it open. We'll see how it all turns out. So, dude, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing.
Hey, no problem, Kevin. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Hey, guys, did you not love that with David? Oh, my gosh. Just some total gold was dropped there. Whipped out my little Remarkable. If you guys don't have these are fantastic. I'm always a big fan of writing notes, and I just use this Remarkable. It's wonderful. But get this, he started buying rentals when he was in college. Can you imagine being, and he even went back and said, oh yeah, for my 20s, my young 30s, you know, I was pretty worthless, and bought like 12 rentals. It's like, okay, we'll have a different idea there. But get this, he started out, he lost his parents in like high school. Like, oh my gosh. And he was still able to turn out and just be freaking remarkable. Basically his, what he calls about his slow start, buying some of these with that borrowing that 20% equity and then getting into it and then watching people like Brian Schroeder and other people and learning from, you know, example from what other people have done and just rinse and repeat. bought a motel, talks about his highs and lows on that, and then also how he's pivoting on the seller financing, right? So is it owning rentals, or is it able to create, he's owning the paper, right? The promissory note, the financing side, which is like a rental, but doesn't have all the negative sides to it. So it's really kind of fascinating to see all the stuff he has. We have the new book that comes out, he said, in a couple weeks. So I'll give you a heads up when that's coming. But I think the biggest thing that I want to say, the takeaway there, was his idea of standards. So we talk about, I'm a big fan of affirmations. I'm a big fan of building these healthy habits. But I think part of that, if I sum those in a different way, is, hey, I'm not the guy who does this. I'm a guy who does this, right? With drinking, I think is what he said. Hey, I don't go home and drink. Like, that's not what I do. So he built the standards, whether it's through an affirmation or whether it's through a habit building. That's one of those, like, I'm not the kind of guy that goes out and does that. I'm not the guy who goes out and drinks and drives. I'm not the guy who goes and does whatever it is. I don't sit on my couch and binge Netflix for a weekend, right? I'm the guy who goes out and works out. I want to be strong. I want to, like, what a great, he set up policies or standards that just, hey, you either make it or it doesn't. Gosh, I think you told me this afterwards, but if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And it was just one of those, like, man, what a cool little way of just saying, if I'm not all in, it's just a no. Like, that's it. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dave Dodge as much as I did. So it's going to be just wonderful catching up with him and all the stuff that we could do. Thank you for jumping on. Thanks for watching, and we appreciate you.